So my name is Charles Clancy. I'm a professor in electrical and computer engineering at Virginia Tech, and I'm also the director of the Hume Center for National Security and Technology. So today I'd like to share with you the story of the Hume Center. The theme of these talks is looking at kind of what the future of academic relationships between academia and industry might be. So I guess any good story, there's a bit of a backstory. So much of the Hume Center is heavily influenced by my own experiences. So I was a kid in the 80s. I got my first computer when I was 5 years old. I started programming in BASIC when I was 8 years old. And I was a very happy child on Christmas morning when I was 12 when I discovered that Santa had given me a C compiler. As I moved into high school and into college, I started discovering this whole world of computer security. One of my heroes as a child was Matthew Broderick's character in the movie War Games. This started to get me into trouble in high school. Ended up in the principal's office a couple times for hacking the school systems, and almost actually got expelled from college for hacking into university systems. It was about 4 years before Mark Zuckerberg started the whole Facebook thing at Harvard. I had developed something similar, but I did not acquire the information in the most legitimate way. So in 2010, I decided to leave and go to Virginia Tech to help launch the Hume Center for National Security and Technology. And I think at its heart, our goal is to try and get students interested in careers in national security and give them a bit better footing in terms of what that means than war games and enemy of the state, which were my sort of motivators going in. So what we do is we have a very interesting program that combines both education and student mentorship with research. So Ted Hume, who is the benefactor behind our center, was at CIA for many years. He left, he started a company, he sold the company, and then provided an endowment back to Virginia Tech. And as a part of that endowment, his goal was for us to really inspire the next generation of national security leaders. We would do that through development of new curriculum, creation of extracurricular programs, sort of a whole system of student mentorship and career mentorship. Because every freshman comes in and wants to be a CIA case officer, and perhaps that's not the best career for everyone. So that's a lot of what we do. In addition to that, we pair it with the opportunity for students to work on classified research. So I think it's a truly unique environment where we're doing classified research. We're able to get student security clearances, particularly master's and PhD student security clearances. And then they're able to get really engaged with the mission, understand kind of the core technological and issues associated with national security, but at the same time they have curriculum and student experiences that are sort of aligned with that. And that's really what we're doing at the Hume Center. We've been doing it now for about 6 years, and our funding, sort of pie graph of funding there, but we're mostly funded by the DoD and the IC. We do pretty much all of the classified work at Virginia Tech. And we have in addition to academic faculty and graduate students, we have a cadre of full-time research staff that are necessary to execute on things that are other than pure grant-based research. If I had to sort of characterize an underlying theme of the work we do, it's really taking the challenges of cybersecurity, autonomy, and resilience in the national security community and seeking to advance fundamental technologies to address that. I'd say a lot of where we're headed is heavily influenced by the DepSecDef's third offset strategy and the technologies that will be needed as a part of that strategy moving forward. So a heavy influence of autonomy and things of that nature. Another very interesting thing at Virginia Tech is that we've had a lot of success with spinning off companies. The Hume Center has spun off 3 companies now in the past few years. And those companies have raised more venture capital than the Hume Center has actually won in grants and contracts. And they now employ more people across the country than the Hume Center employs within its organization. So that's a really interesting opportunity to see secondary impact and tertiary impact of the work that we're doing. Where a typical academic program would really kind of focus on the first half of that pipeline, we are really aggressively moving towards the second half of the pipeline as well. And part of that really, so the question is, well, what does that have to do with national security? Well, one, we have sponsors like DARPA and others who are investing a lot of money in research at universities. And there isn't always some big government program of record that's there to absorb the technology that we're creating. So what happens to that technology? Well, what we have done is sort of noticed this trend that increasingly the federal government wants to buy COTS. And if somehow we have to take this research that was done at a university and turn it into something COTS that the government can buy. And a really interesting way of doing that is through startup companies. So that's another, I think, key innovation that we have at Virginia Tech in this area. But given the theme of today, I guess, really is imagining the future, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about what Virginia Tech is doing right now in terms of preparing itself for the next 35 years. So if you look at what's happening in the academic world, there's a lot of changes going on. The rise of online education is shaking things up pretty significantly. Universities are trying to figure out their role in offering classes in the classroom versus classes online, and really trying to figure out what exactly that looks like. At Virginia Tech, we have an initiative called Beyond Boundaries that's looking to sort of reimagine what this will look like moving into the future. There's lots of different components to this. We're still trying to sort it all out. But one of the key components of that is the destination areas, which is basically our strategic investments over the next 10 years at Virginia Tech. So Virginia Tech is planning to grow from 30,000 students to 35,000 students over the next 5 years. So 5,000 more students over the next 5 years. And if you've got 5,000 more students, you need more professors to teach the classes for those students. And so rather than just hiring kind of uniformly across the board, where each college and department kind of gets a pro rata increase in the number of faculty positions, our provost and our president are focused on how we can take those 150 new faculty positions and strategically invest them in a handful of areas that will have a significant effect in terms of growing new opportunity at the university. And any area that's selected has a whole litany of criteria that it needs to meet. One, there needs to be employers who care about students who are graduating with degrees in this area. Two, there needs to be federal funding for research in this area. And if you can kind of bring together, and the third would be we have to have existing strength at Virginia Tech that can be leveraged into that area. There are 5 areas that are selected, depicted here, just kind of starting at the top. Resilient Earth systems is really about dealing with the challenges of climate change and how that's going to affect the Earth. The second is data and decision science, which is really kind of big data and the impact of that on really society as a whole. The third is adaptive brain and behavior. This is really more oriented towards our medical school and some of our computational bioinformatics programs as well. The fourth is what's called integrated security, and I'll come back to that one in a second. And the fifth is intelligent infrastructure and human-centered communities. So this is all about the smartification of our environment, smart buildings, smart grid, intelligent transportation. What does the built environment of the future look like? And for that one, actually, we've got some really interesting opportunities for what we're calling these living labs. We have, of course, our main campus down in Blacksburg, which represents kind of a more rural area. And then we have a pretty large presence in Arlington, Virginia, which is where I'm based, which we have strong partnerships with the county and big building real estate locally, where we have a living lab in Arlington that allows us to do a lot of research in this area. But coming back to the integrated security area, the Hume Center at Virginia Tech has been asked to sort of lead the development of this. And this is going to be really interesting because the Hume Center so far has been principally a research department on campus. We have had the ability to influence curriculum, working with the academic departments, but no real sort of authority for curriculum. And under the destination areas, we will actually get tenure-track professors and the ability to scope out a curriculum in integrated security, where a student could be a major in computer science or a major in political science, and they would be able to get an integrated major in, embedded major in integrated security, which is kind of a really interesting new concept, and we're still trying to sort out the nuts and bolts of how all that will work. But we're very interested in engaging with industry to understand what their interests are in terms of what skills they'd like to see our graduates have. Within integrated security, there are a total of 4 areas that we're going to be focusing on. The first is critical infrastructure protection. So dealing with principally the challenges of energy and transportation and the threats to those, principally cyber threats to those. So we've got a number of programs going on in those areas, and Virginia Tech has core strength in energy and transportation that we'll be leveraging. The second area is cybersecurity, governance, and technology. So I think that sort of interdisciplinary area is exemplified by the ongoing debate between Apple and the FBI, right? There's tough policy problems, technical problems, privacy problems as well. The third area is defense technology and strategy. So that's really focused on the rise of China and Russia as key adversaries. And what do we do about that, both in terms of new technology and in terms of strategy and policy. And the fourth is really looking more on the life sciences side. What are the security challenges in the life sciences world, including bio, agro, eco type security challenges